Hello and greetings to everyone today. I'm Mark Wolf here with Emergency Reporting for our 4th edition of Virtual Thursday for 2019. And we're going to jump right into this one. Today we're going to cover some of the basics on NIFRS reporting, and we've got a new feature that we want to make sure everybody's aware of, and run through some of the common issues that we hear about and questions on mutual aid situations. So without further ado, we're going to get into it. Again, my name is Mark Wolf. I am a regional trainer, and online with me, back in the background here to answer questions if anybody has any, is Mark McKleroy, our lead trainer. And we also have, he might be able to stick with us for a while, Michael Fabian, one of our other part-time regional trainers, who happens to be on duty, but he's able to take a few minutes to hang with us here, and he'll be helping answering some questions too. So thanks for both of you for being online with us today. We want to remind you of your continuing training opportunities with emergency reporting. First of all, our Virtual Thursdays. Again, they're free. I believe everybody online knows that because you're here and we see a lot of the same names. So we appreciate you guys coming in and paying attention to our programs. We do offer online training, 3-hour blocks customized to meet your needs. We do provide on-site training opportunities. If you want to bring one of our trainers into your department, we can arrange for that. And our regional training academies is what I want to mention. And we're going to take a look at those. Like next week, we will be down in Dallas, Texas, and that presentation is sold out. We have one up and coming in Anaheim, California, May 14th, 15th, and 16th. And New Orleans, September 10th, 11th, and 12th. And we have actually just scheduled an additional regional training in San Antonio, Texas, and we are working on another one that will maybe be in Ohio, and the tentative date frame for that is in October. We're going to get you information on San Antonio and possibly Ohio when that one does get firmed up. As soon as we get that information out, we will get it to you folks. If you have any questions for us, you can email us at training@emergencyreporting.com, and you can go to our website, emergencyreporting.com, go to customer success or resources, whichever site you happen to land on, and you can find our training opportunities there and learn more about it. I want to give a big shout out to a few names I saw on there, and there may be some more that I'm not familiar with or didn't see you on there. Jordan and Ryan down in North Carolina and in Johnston County. I was down there for an on-site, met those guys. We've got Brian Bajorstad up in North Dakota is online with us. Greg out in California, Greg Ballman. And we have Jeff Hilvers from the Trotwood Fire here in Ohio. He's just actually right down the street from me right now. So we are going to go ahead and jump into this. Let me turn that program off and grab my outline here. The first thing we want to do is to go in and cover some of the settings that will affect how your report acts and what fields you can make mandatory. And this is where a new feature is going to be. So we're going to go ahead and jump into the administration module. And we're going to go up into our incident settings into required fields and customizations. First and foremost, you do have at the top of the page the ability to create a custom fields page. These will be custom questions that you can generate for your folks to answer as they're going through the incident report, and that will be very useful for collecting data that is not one of the data fields for the typical NIFRS report. Down on your basic pages, there are 5 basic pages, and we have some options now on 4 of those 5. So on basic page 1, you can make required. Now these fields are always there, but you can make them required for shift or platoon. Dispatch run number on basic 1, you can see where I have shift or platoon check mark, which makes it required. On basic page 3, city code and county code, those are actually for our NEMSIS 2 product, and for most of you out there are of real no value to you, and I really don't recommend making those mandatory or putting data in those fields. Down below that is the zone field. And the zone field is very, very important and useful for you. To give you an example, what we can do is have you generate incident zones, and I'll show you where to do that in just a moment, geographically based on neighborhoods, parts of your city or your fire district, perhaps by run card or box alarm districts, whatever you may have, response plans, that type of thing. You can set those up as zones, and there's a whole slew of reports for incidents that do pull data by zone or for zone as one of these selectors that you can do. On the basic 4 page, and some of your accounts, you may have 2 options here. The first option that everybody will have is to require an en route date and time. It's always on your incident report, but you can make it mandatory to put data in those 2 fields if you check that box right there. And it's real important, especially if your response times, your turnout time primarily is something that you want to be able to calculate. You'll have to require the en route date and time on basic 4 to make sure that you have data put into those fields every time somebody does a report. And our new feature is the one we have down here for basic info 5 page. Now you can now make a selection there which would require property and content loss data for 100 series incidents, which the 100 series are your fire incidents. That anytime somebody selects any kind of 100 series incident type, they would have to put property and content loss values in the incident report. That's optional. That is brand new. It just got pushed out within the last week or so. And I'm going to jump back up here to the basic 4 page. For those accounts out there, if you do not have an EMS patient care report enabled in your account, you'll have another option right down here on the basic 4 page, and that will be to make it required to select a response mode when you're entering data for a particular rig that went on the call. And I'll show you where that field is. If you have a NEMSIS 2 or NEMSIS 3 account, that is always required to have data put into that field, and you won't have that option, as I do not on this particular account that I use for training and that. So those are your options for your NIFRS reporting that we have in the required fields and customizations page. One more that I want to talk about is the incident zones. That's in a different section of the admin module. And we're going to come over here to the drop down section and come to the zone list right down here. Now this zone list is for your incident zones. Give that a selection. See what I have here is just a few in here. So we have in this particular jurisdiction, we have a zone on our east side, north side, and south. And you'll notice I have one in the middle here that's for mutual aid. If you require the data to be entered into the zone field as a best practice, you'll want to create at least one zone for mutual aid. And in fact, some agencies are now creating a zone for each individual department that you may help mutual aid. So if you help 3 or 4 departments, you'll have 3 or 4 zones, one for each of those, and additional zones from within your jurisdiction. That way, using that zone filter, the parameters in the incident the report that you'll pull data from, you'll be able to specify exactly how many calls and what type you went to a particular zone, including those different mutual aid zones if you do create them down there. Now these zones can be based upon geographical areas within your district, stations, run cards, response plans, alarm tables, box alarm zones, anything like that that you may have. You can use those to generate your incident zones for. And they're very, very useful, and it's a heck of a tool to pull data from. You can really get down to some pretty detailed nitty-gritty on where you're going on those calls based on those zones. One other place we're going to actually look at 2 more places within the admin page that we want to talk about. And the next item down is the neighboring agencies list. If I select that, you can see we've got a few departments listed in here as neighboring agencies. And the thing I want to mention here is if you put any data in here, this will appear on your basic info 5 page. And one thing we like to promote is the putting of the FDID number behind the department name. Even though we do have a field specifically for that, the agency name is the only field that displays an incident report, and you can use this FDID number here as a quick reference when you need to put data in if you respond mutual aid to them. And I'll show you an example of that here in a little bit. We do have one thing I want to talk about with the neighboring agencies list. There's currently no report that pulls data from this, and something we're encouraging our dev team to do. What we'd like for you to do is to, if you're interested in this and need that kind of data, which, and I understand the importance of that for you, so you can keep track of who came in to help you and for your incidents, mutual aid or otherwise, it'd be nice to have a report that we can pull that data from. Go into our community pages on our support page and the feature request section, and you might want to look in there to see if a feature request is already in for the neighboring agencies list for a report for that. If not, put one in yourself, and we'll try to encourage folks to vote that up to show that we have the support of multiple customers out there to do that for us. Okay, so that is your neighboring agencies list. The next thing we're going to do is come down to agency friends and talk about this a little bit. I'm going to show you an example later on during the session about agency friends and what it can do for you, especially with related to incident responses. It's very simple to set up. First of all, they have to be an emergency reporting customer, and they have to be within your state. Now you can see in this particular case, I have a whole stack of agency friends here. Now most of these are in Ohio, and I'm Ohio based, but you'll see some other ones in Pennsylvania that we can kind of fool the system a little bit and do some behind the scenes work to switch account states so we can help folks by sharing some information that way. But essentially what you'll do to add an agency friend is select this add new agency at the top of the page. We'll call this the training fire department, and we will give them an FDID number of 89001. The FDID number in this is extremely important to get exactly what it is, and it always has to be 5 characters. That's how this ties together with agency friends, is the FDID number. Now, if it's not a fire department but an EMS department, you can put their EMS ID in the field below that. Now, even though that you can select any state in the list here, just take my word for it, it will only work within departments within your own state. And down here, we're going to focus on the incidents agency friends. If we select read only for that, this won't allow these agencies to enter your account. It only does 2 things for us. First, this top item, it allows us for sharing of incident data and only some data via the reports module. And I'll show you an example of that in just a moment. Also, down below that, it talks about pulling in the data for mutual aid responses through agency friends. Now, what you'll have to do with this is for a particular fire department, you'll need to set them up as an agency friend, and they'll need to set you up as an agency friend so you can share data back and forth. And again, I'll show you an example of that here in a little bit. So what I want to do first before we actually jump into an incident is talk about what is available in the reports module. And this goes for all of the sections and modules that you can share agency friends with. So I will go to home. Let's jump down to the reports module. And here's my keyword search. Enter -agency. When I type that keyword in and press enter, you'll see that we have a number of interagency reports that'll pop up here, and there's 13 of them. So we can look at, for incidents, specifically dispatch time, average turnout time, incident count, EMS calls, incident count for fire calls, average response time for response mode, response time for response mode, and fire loss per incident type, incident count per month per year. And now at the bottom of here, we're going to come back to these in a little while, but there's actually 2 additional interagency reports we're going to look at later on. That's these 2 that specifically mention this geospatial response summary. And I'll show you what that's about here after we take a look at an incident report. So I'm going to just take a moment here and ask Mac. And I am looking at a couple questions. We need to pause here and answer those, Mac, or do you guys have it under control?
I think we've got it. We just had Austin was asking about being able to differ from sent, mutual aid, or received, and we were explaining that what you were showing now was just the zones in there, and then as far as the picking was actually inside the incident, within the incident module, and I'm sure you'll cover that when we start the instance there.
Sure. Okay, perfect. Yes, I'll make sure that I mention that as we got a couple special examples of that as well. And I see Brian just put a request in there. I'll just address it right now. Does interagency feature work only with full fire? No, it doesn't, Brian. It'll work with any emergency reporting account out there. So if you have an agency friend that's EMS only or a fire EMS department, an agency friend is an agency friend. You just have to put the correct FDID number in, or the EMS ID number. The EMS ID number is specifically for the EMS only agencies. And now he's asking, so can we share with a ND sponsored FDID? I really don't understand your question.
Brian, are you in North Dakota?
Brian is.
If you are, then you can share. Yeah, then you can share with anybody in North Dakota that has emergency reporting. You can friend and share with them.
And now Gabe is asking a great question here, and that's the question: is there a list of agencies we can choose agency friends from? Well, Gabe, we can do that, and I often do that. So here's what I want you to do. Anybody out there wants to send me a request. I may not get to it today or tomorrow, but I will certainly get to it Monday morning before I travel down to Dallas. Is send me a request to, here's my email address, mark.wolf, mark.wolf, WOLF, at emergencyreporting.com. Send me a request. Tell me what state you're in, and the best thing to do is to send me the name of the county that you are in and any counties, that fire departments that you work with. And I can look up a list and I can email that back to you. So I hope that answers your question, Gabe. And that's from our data of all of our customers within your state and your county. Sometimes if we pick the whole state, well, there's like hundreds and hundreds of customers. It's kind of impractical. So let's focus on a county and your adjacent counties for that. So hopefully we answered that for you, Gabe. So just don't hesitate to send me an email to ask for that. All right, we're going to come back over here and we're going to jump straight into the incidents module and a few things from the grid here. When we go into the incidents module, where we should land is the multi-record tab. We should land at all calls selected and for the last 30 days. Now, if you have a CAD feed in your particular agency, what you're going to see out here on the grid is essentially the addressing information that you were dispatched to, and you'll have an incident date and time here, and it comes from your CAD data. And the status of that incident report will be incomplete. So again, if you have a CAD feed, and only those folks have a CAD feed, or if you have an active 911 feed, you can come in, find the call that you need to put your report on, and select it with one mouse click, and you will go into it. I'll tell you what we'll do. I will respond, and that's for Ken. What's that email again? Let me go ahead, and I'll put that in the chat, I hope. There it goes.
We just sent it to everybody.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Mac. So for that case, CAD feed or active 911, you'll find your call, give it one mouse click like that, and you will go into the summary view, which looks like this, and then you'll just select the basic module button. You'll go to basic 1. Now, if you do not have a CAD feed and you have to manually create an incident report, select this new button up here in the upper left corner right next to home, and that's going to start an incident report. But before I do that, I am going to cover a couple other items in here. Now, you can change your multi-record search. If you're looking for only incomplete calls, you can make that selection and do a search, and it will only show you, in this case, only incomplete calls within the last 30 days. My date range that I have here, options, just a few of them. Last 30 days, the current calendar year, the current calendar year and the previous year, and all time. You can only make one selection over here for the call type. So we go back to all calls, last 30 days, you can see my list. Now this grid is a technical point here I want to point out to you, is sorted by the column with the date and time in it and the station. The earliest or most recent call is at the top of this page, and this is sorted by date and time. The incident number over here in the leftmost column does not have any bearing upon the actual sort order of this grid. It is the date, time of the incident. Addressing information will be in the large column in the middle. Status of the incident report is over here in the second to the right column. The three incident statuses are incomplete, which means we've got data missing or data that's not validating correctly. A complete report, which means we met all of our validation criteria and somebody completed the call. And then after it's reviewed, the lock will turn green and it'll state reviewed next to it. Now you'll also see in this rightmost column the ability to delete calls. This is permissions based to be able to delete a call. And what I'm going to do, just come down here to this bottom one. At the bottom of the page, give it a mouse click on delete and select OK here. But I want to warn everybody, just what it says on the screen. If you delete an incident report, all the incident data will be irreversibly deleted, and there's no getting it back. So if you call us or contact us through support and say, hey, I inadvertently deleted this, can I get the info back? The answer is no, we cannot. And one thing I want to show you with that as well, I'm going to go ahead and delete that one. I'm going to open another tab here by duplicating it. I'm going to jump into the reports module. We do have a special report. If you want to jot this number down, it is the 888 report. The 888 report is a history of deleted incidents. And it'll tell us, like for the date range, all the calls that have been deleted and who deleted the call. So if you have any question over a call that you're not seeing in your grid that should be there, if someone inadvertently deleted it or did it on purpose, this will be that list of the calls that you can check. And that again is the 888 report, history of deleted incidents. I see we've got a couple questions out there. I'm going to kind of pause for a moment and scan these a little bit. I saw one there. I thought David.
I think we've covered from Brian, Mark, and I'm answering one with Todd Russell now.
Okay, perfect. I see two of them here I'm going to address right now.
Okay.
David Klein, how can you get your CAD feed online with ER? David, that is an extra service we provide. You have to contact your sales rep and have a CAD feed set up. Now there is a fee for that and a maintenance fee annually for getting your CAD feed online with ER. However, if you in your particular department you use Active 911, you can use a feed from Active 911 to dump data into your ER account for incidents, and we do not charge for that. And what I would recommend you do, if you're using Active 911 and that's the data you want to get into your incident report, and it's basic data only, there's no times for your apparatus in that. However, that is free. Go to our support page, into our knowledge base, and search for Active 911, and there's a knowledge base article exactly on how to accomplish that process. You have to make a request to have it done, and they've got to do some setup on it, but there's a free service that we provide. And Shane, I'm going to go right below that with Shane. is asking, why is there not a code for canceled prior to response? Shane, our position on that is the only codes for incidents that we have in the system and available for you to select are the ones that is in the NIFRS coding books. They do not have a incident type code for a canceled prior to response, or the ability to code something that you were unable to respond to, because that's a frequent question as well. We're going to address that in a little while, and I'll show you that for actually a canceled while en route code we do have, and we use that quite a bit. So we'll address that. Mac is catching up with some other ones, so what I'm going to do is come over here and talk about the other searches that we have on the incident grid. A single record search, your incident number, or your PCR number. It's important to know that what you need to do is to put in the year of the call, such as 2019 dash, and then put your incident number in, search, and then when it finds an exact match, it'll bring up just that report, whether it's based off an incident number or a PCR number. Now the PCR number has to have the year entered too, with a hyphen and then the actual PCR number. So that is an example of how to do a single record search. The advanced search has got a whole host of fields that you can use to search for. Multi-record options, and those options are the statuses of the reports. You can search on a date range, and what's nice to know is you can search on advanced search on more than one field. Zone is a good example of being able to filter out. Let's say we just only want to see mutual aid calls in that mutual aid zone. So if I do, I'm going to do a couple year search on this to today, and I could come down this list and select additional criteria and then select search, and you can see that these calls have been coded in the mutual aid zone down the page here. So that's an example of the advanced search. One of the real important ones I want to show you here as well, let's deselect those, is if we come in and we're putting people into the people module, this is where we'll search to see if we can find a match. And I've got a couple in here at least with a fellow by the name of Jim Shue. We'll just search by last name. Sometimes the less information is better. And if I search by that name, you'll see that that name is attached to these 10 incident reports out there. And that's another big bonus of having those multiple fields that you can search data on. That's under advanced search. All right, so let's go back to multi-record and get back to where we'll be when we first enter into the incidents module. And I'm going to go ahead and select the new for a new incident report. And what we're going to do is land on the basic info 1 page. And you'll note at the top of the page right now, I'm not in a summary view, and I don't have any module buttons up here at the top. Those will appear after I start this incident report. So I will select for today's date. You can hand type in a date there if you want to, or if your incident was yesterday, select that link. Let the system generate the next incident number, and what the system will do is go out and look for the biggest number in your incidents list and add one to it. And if I have a dispatch run number, I can enter that and data at the bottom of the page here. Now, if you have a CAD feed, basically this data at the top of the page should be pre-filled for you from your CAD data. The only thing you'll have to worry about is coming down here to the incident type field and filling that out. The system will bring in the station and shifter platoon from the basic info 1, or your home page. So if you're logged in, you go create the incident report, whatever your station and shift assignment is, that's what's going to pre-populate those fields. The field names that have this nice pretty red font are required fields. So those are the ones you're going to focus on and getting your data input into, and you'll be good to go. Down here, we're going to start with an incident type. If you know what the incident type is in this field, you can just type it in. So if I know we went to a building fire and I happen to know the code for that, we can put that in 111. If I save the page, you'll see that it'll come up with a building fire. And you'll see after we save this page, now our modules will display, and we use a dynamic validation tool that displays and allows you to put in data into the modules that you're required to based off of the NFRS validation standards. And you also note that there's little red light and green lights down here for each page within a module. A red light means you've got data missing on that page, or you have data that doesn't validate. The actual number of modules that you'll see and the pages within those modules will be dependent upon the data you put in on Basic Info 1 and Basic Info 2. And I'm going to come back to Basic Info 1 in a little while and give you some information about the aid given or received field down here in the bottom section. I recommend the best practice for going through an incident report, entering your data, is to use the next button as we go through an incident report. Now, when you go to Basic Info 2, on a NFRS only account, you're going to see a minimum of 2 questions on here. The answers will be defaulted to no. And if there's more than 2 questions here, that indicates you put some other type of incident type in that you need to make a selection. Now, when you select these, we'll just go down and select about every one I can. We'll put some data in. And what I'm going to do is show you right now, this is kind of a worst case scenario. And we're going to select intentional. On cause of ignition, if you select intentional or you select cause under investigation, I'm going to save the page here, you will see that the arson module pops up. That's what triggers the arson module, is cause of ignition, cause under investigation, or if we select intentional for that. Now, this is pretty much a worst case scenario. We've got a lot of pages to fill in, a lot of data to record through here, so it's going to take us a little bit of time on this. Now, you may have noticed down here that I did not select that there was mobile property involved in this ignition. And the reason for that is I've selected right above that we had equipment involved in the ignition. And one of the NFRS validation rules is if I have equipment selected that was involved in ignition, I cannot list that I have mobile property at the same time. That does not work with the coding rules. If I try to select and put invalid data in here, you're going to see one way we treat this is we give you a pop-up, and it will not allow us to pick that up both at the same time and tell us that we cannot do that. That's one way we do NFRS validation for you. We basically will not allow you to make a mistake. And one of the other important features of the system I want to demo to you with the red lights and green lights is if we have a red light down here, that means we got fields with missing data or data that doesn't validate. If I come over here to the authorize button, any field that has an issue with it, whether it's missing data or validation errors, it's going to list that field here. Now these fields, and these are all hyperlinks for these fields. If I select one of these, it's going to take me to that page where that field resides on. So I'm going to select type of material first ignited, and it's going to take me right back to the Fire 2 page, and that is this field right here. So at any time, if you're confused, you cannot figure out why you have a red light, why it won't go green, go to the authorize button, and you'll see the list of incomplete fields or the fields that the data doesn't validate correctly on. And that's what I wanted to show you with that. So what I'm going to do is we're going to go back and reset this a little bit. I do not want to spend all of our time putting in a very, very detailed incident report. If you've got specific questions on some things, we can help you out. Just put it in the questions for the chat. And also I want to point out too, while I'm working my way back here to do this, is that in the handout section of your control panel, I did put 3 documents in there for you. The first document I put in is a NFRS user guide, 512 pages for you of all the NFRS information. NFRS, the U.S. Fire Administrator NFRS office does offer a coding questions guide. I put that in there, and I did excuse me, put a file in there that is all the NFRS forms in paper format that you can print out if you need to do them by hand in the field. and then turn them in for completion into the system like that. So those should be available to you there in the handouts, and you can go grab those if you want to. What I'll do right now is I'm going to change this call to a false alarm call type. Select next and see with our validation tool that it removed most of the pages here. So we're just going to bop through this report using next, go over some of the basic information. Pardon me. Now, one of the things I'd like to talk about too is the master street list. If you don't have a master street list in your admin module, I want you to spend some time here watching this for me. When we start typing in a street name, if it sees a match in our master street list, it's going to give us options. And the community I live and worked in before I retired, we have Main Street, 3 versions: East, North, and West Main Streets. So when I find the proper selection here, and the more I type, the smaller the list of options are going to be. I select that, and it puts in all that data by prefix, street name, street type, suffix if there's one present, city, state, and zip code. Now, if you have a street that crosses multiple zip codes or multiple cities within your jurisdiction, you may need to put that in more than one time in your master street list. One thing I have here in this account I use for training is our mapping module is turned on. What I like to recommend is that you select that map and that map icon and make sure that the pin is in the proper location. So if you have that feature, you want to check that out and verify it. And if you need to move the pin, we can even look at the satellite view, and you can see it put my pin right in the middle of that intersection where that actually may be over here. And I can tell you, guarantee you, that's an invalid address I put in for that. However, I can move the pin where it needs to be, select OK, and it's going to update my latitude and longitude. And that's a really nice feature we have, is getting very, very accurate pin placement if you have that mapping module. And I'm going to jump to this other tab and show you why. On this particular grid, I have 223 results. I'm going to switch from my grid view to the map view. Now, this is an upcharge to have the mapping module, but when I select that, you'll be able to see that we'll be able to do a heat map off this data. And this may take a few moments to render because I have quite a few calls going on that, 223 to be exact. And I'll tell you what, let's do this. We'll just move on and we'll come back to that in a few minutes here. Down at the bottom of the page, I want to point out to you that the cross street directions or national grid right now is not required, but if we select intersection, you'll see that change to red automatically. Or if it's directions or national grid, that will be a required field. But if I select street address, it becomes non-required. Here's my zone field. Let's select the zone there. Property use code. We can, if we know the property use code, we can type it in. One other thing I want to show you here is with all the coding list for the NIFRS reports, they're all broke down into categories. And these are all hyperlinked. So if I have a residential property here, select residential, it's going to take me right to that particular section, that category, where I can make a selection off of it. All the coding list in the whole entire incident report work just like this. Now, if I want to use a keyword search, if you use your computer's find function, press the control key and press the F key, you'll get a pop-up window here. You can type in a keyword. I'm starting to type in residential, and it will highlight it wherever it finds it. The current one selected, in this case using Google Chrome, is orange, and then it puts these little stripes out here in the scroll bar where we can come down and select the proper one like that. So we can use that find function. Control F. And let me save my page here. And I'm crashing and burning. Sometimes I have this issue with this particular thing because I have this loaded over here. So I'm going to actually go back to my grid view, go into this call, and then go back to Basic Info 3. I should be okay. Here we go, Basic Info 4. Now I have a NMSIS 3 account, and that's what this panel on the top here that's opened is for. You may not see that. I am going to add an apparatus. This is my manual entry. There's a shortcut here that we can use. Here's that response mode that I've made required. I'm going to say the call was today and it happened at 10 o'clock this morning. I can use my fill dates and fill times buttons to push that data down for the apparatus. Any of the red fields with that font are required. I'm going to remove a couple of these because they're not going to be required. And what I can do is just come down into here and just edit these times. All I recommend that you put in your alarm date and time and then edit the rest of them. It's about the easiest way to do that using your tab key, and enter the correct data. Don't forget the seconds, or you have to put zeros in there. And we'll just go ahead and do that. Now, as a technical point, all these times have to be in sequence from the earliest time to the latest time in order, or it won't validate correctly. I'm actually going to show you that. I put an in-service time before my cleared scene time. Now for my personnel list will be over here on the to the right of that. Once I put all my times in here, and they have data in them, I come over here and filter this list if I need to. So let's say in my particular case here, I used this station 3, and it was C shift that made the call. I can filter this list out and give me fewer selections to pick from. And select your personnel. As another technical point for NIFRs, you have to put at least one vehicle on every incident report with at least one person on them. If you're using our daily roster, you can bypass using your personnel list down here and just use the fill from roster button up here, and it'll bring it in. If you have a current daily roster for this particular day, that'll work. So I'm going to select next here, and you'll see that I will still have an issue with this call with the red light right next to my unit number, E101. And that's because I have this time out of sequence here. Sometimes finding a time out of sequence is kind of difficult. In this case, we're going to go to authorized. And if you have a validation error with the time, it's going to show you that back here on the authorized page. And we're going to select that link and come back in, and we'll correct that for you. Okay, so we're going to go on to Basic Info 5 and talk about this page. Primary action taken is typically the only required field on this page using our list. This is another feature for NIFRS validation that I want to point out to you is you can see some of these selections on this particular page are black. And the reason for that is I cannot select them because our NIFR validation standards say that if I have a false alarm type like this call is right now, then I cannot have a fire to put out, so I cannot even select that. So it goes exactly to the validation standards that NIFRS has established, and there they are. I'm going to actually just select 86, investigate this, and we're going to jump over to the narrative. We're going to come back to Basic Info 5 in just a little bit here and put in a narrative right now. The title of a narrative is optional, and it's optional to select a narrative for an apparatus unless in the incident setups in the admin page, you can require a narrative for every vehicle that goes on the call. If you do that, every vehicle that you put in on the Basic Info 4 page is going to have a line here, and it'll pre-select based on that apparatus number. Put my narrative in, whatever it needs to be. We can just type that in. We can also do a copy and paste if you have pre-built narratives out in some Word document someplace. You can do that. So that's a narrative. We can add multiple narratives. It's fairly simple. You just select Add New Narrative. Again, put a title in if it's appropriate for you. Select an apparatus if it's appropriate. And then I did misspell the word narrative on purpose to show you if you have the spell checker in your browser turned on, it does work within the system. We'll correct that and we'll select done, and off we go. Next, we've got the files button. We're going to go into it, into the files module, and this is where you can add files. Most of the time our folks, customers will be adding photographs. So I've got some out here. I'm going to go grab a couple real quick. You can put a number of photographs in here. You can only do 20 files at a time, but you can perform this operation multiple times. You can even put in PDF files, Word documents can fit in here, anything. When I get those all in here, you'll see over here on the left is thumbnails, and then over here on the right, the image that we have selected will be displayed. This is my favorite one. It's my frozen building. To explain to everybody down south what that's about, these little white things hanging off this building are called icicles. You may not have seen them ever, but they happen up here where I am quite often in the wintertime. And like up where Brian is in North Dakota, I'm sure they see that once in a while too in the wintertime. We're going to go ahead and select next and go into the custom questions. If you have custom questions established, this is where they're going to be displayed, and you'll need to answer them. If they're red, you are required to answer them, or you cannot ballot or complete the report. If you've got the payroll module enabled, this is where you'll put in either the hours for your pay or points. You can edit these if somebody needs to have them edited. Decimals work in there as well. And when we get to the end of this, since I have all of my red lights gone, you'll see that I can put my password in the authorized module. Very simple process. Put it in. It's the same password you use to get into your account. Complete the incident report, and we get a yellow light here. And for this call out on our grid, you'll see that my status has changed to complete. Now, you may have saw that line right below that field for my password that allowed me to complete and review at the same time by checking that box. That works only if you have review privileges. If I'm the reviewer and I want to go in and look at this, I can certainly page through this just like we put it in, selecting next, 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 next. Or we can select the print icon, select what data we want to look at, and print it out. It'll throw that incident report out to a tab here, and we can scan through this information. So if we assume, let's say we had an issue with this, we want to send this back to the person it's assigned to, we can select Make Incomplete. If their email address is in there, we can send them a nice little message pretty quick and easily. Whatever we need information to give them, when we select Send Notification, it's going to change that report to incomplete, and it also just sent an email out. And I do not have my email open right now. We've been driving us crazy. I would show you that, but I can assure you I've already got it. And it does change that status to incomplete. And if I fix that up, I want to just show you one other feature here. We're going to change gears. We're going to complete and review at the same time. If you've got that option, you can do so. And it changes that report to reviewed status. So, Jordan, you're out there today. I hope you got my email from you. I want to point out to everybody for your NIFRS export. So when you're exporting it to your state, all of the incidents for a specific month have to be in reviewed status, or you cannot export any of them. They have to be in reviewed. If there's any for a month or a quarter, however your state has it set up, if it's yellow locks or red locks out there, you cannot export any. So let me actually go down to the admin module, and we'll show you what I'm talking about. For our NIFRS 5.1 export, on the left side of the admin page, since I have these zeros, or a number other than a zero out here, there's no way I can select the radio button to export for that month. Now, for example, I can export January. Scroll down, push the export button, and it just exported those two calls. And we'll be able to see that right here, that number switched to the exported column. If you have a number in the not yet reviewed column, you cannot select a radio button and it will not work for you. Okay, so one thing I want to show you before we go into some discussion on the new feature that we have is if you have a agency friend set up. I need to get back to my incident module. You have them set up, and then they have you set up. I'm going to need to go into this report here I put in the other day. And one thing I want to show you, and I set this up specifically for this training, is in the Basic Info 4 page. When we get this thing completed up, let me do this. I will get this information. I will pick them off of our list, and I swear I set this up the other day, and it's not going to work for me. And I forget the FDID number. I'm going to have to, you'll have to excuse me for a second. We might have to go look around for a second here. And okay, that's the account I'm thinking that we need. And it's this one. Oh, it's called Terrain. I must have went in and opened up that incident report. We were doing some testing for a support issue the other day. And basically, we'll just leave it at this. On the Basic Info 4 page, if you have agency friends set up, and let me, and why this might not be working is why we're going to jump right into our discussion about this requirement on Basic Info 5. If I put some type of 100 series call here, like a building fire, and in this particular account, I have that set up. I'm going to select none for mutual aid very quickly. There's a requirement on Basic Info 5 now for me to put in property values. I've set that up. So if I have any kind of information on the value of it, pre-incident value of my losses, this is where I'll need to put that in if you enable that feature. Now, one of the issues we have right now is a little bit of a bug that comes up on this particular case if we respond mutual aid. And what you can do is come in here and select that none on these. We call this a workaround. You'll have to set up your incident report as a not a mutual aid call. Come into here, select none for all 4 of those, and then come back up here and make the selection receiving the mutual aid, and then, or giving the mutual aid, I should say. You know, on that particular page, those sections disappear and you've met the validation criteria and there won't be an issue with that. In this particular case, what we'll need to do is make sure that we have their FDID number in here. If we give mutual aid, their state and their incident number. Once we meet that criteria, when I save this page, you'll see my red light up here will go away. Now, if you have agencies set up as an agency friend, you can select this list button up here, and there will be a list of buttons or calls up here if they've saved their Basic Info 1 page that you can select, and it'll bring that information in. And once you get your report done and they get their report done on the Basic Info 4 page, their apparatus will be listed on this page. And this is the part I really wanted to show you, is for this type of instance, I'm going to go up here and authorize the call. So I've completed it. We have 2 reports that I'm going to jump into, and you may want to make a note of these report numbers. The first is 1683. This is one of those 2 geospatial reports I mentioned before. So it's this geospatial report. And if we pull this report, if we have agency friends set up, let me select April here so we don't have that many calls to look at. On this particular report, if agency friends are selected, they've got their incident report and you have your incident report in, your incident data will be on this page and their incident data will be on this page. And one of the important things that will show you, if you look over here onto the left of the page here is the total personnel for that call. So in my case here, I'm looking at this call number 1 and number 11. This is that mutual aid call right here. We have their apparatus listed and the total personnel on that apparatus will be listed here. So you can use this for your ISO reporting if you need to. They have to be an ER customer for all this to work. And it's one of the 2 geospatial reports. The other geospatial report is number 1292. On that particular report, we're going to go and look at April. In this particular report, we have data up top here, and we'll have actually another page of information down here. Well, so you can see I have that other agency, the training test Allen. So we can bring that information in. Number of apparatus and the number of personnel for that mutual aid company will be listed here. So that's the benefit of having agency friends, using those reports and pulling data directly from the basic info 4 page from their agency. So you won't have to put in any of their times or contact them if you need that kind of information. So we wanted to go over that information. I'm going to give Mac a chance if he's still out there. He's got to leave here in a few minutes. Do we have any questions that we need to address right now, Mac or Michael?
I've got a few, Mark.
Okay.
I've got one here for, let me go back up. I sort of covered several of them. We got a bunch of them about why something's not working, or can we add, digits here, the master streets not forming or populating the city code and county code and stuff. And just to let y'all know, that's not really anything we can control. That's like a feature request that needs to be put in there. I've mentioned some on the, the city code, county code. That's not coming over from your, it's actually a separated list that's in there. It's more of a census type stuff that where you go to fill those in. It's not really coming over with your city and state that you're entering on your address. So it's a little bit of different things there. If they can add that, that's something that may be a suggested feature there that you can put into. That's not something, the system does as its current state, of what it's doing. Some other questions about different stuff that's being added in. Some of them were asking some questions, and I put my email and your email address is in there too, that we can sort of get a little bit more detailed with some things. So
okay, perfect.
It's hard to answer on here. Okay.
Question from Gabe, just to report to everybody. He's asking about, is it the best practice to require exact seconds on times? And the answer for that is, Gabe, Mac responded to that is yes. For all the information for ISO can mean a big difference on your and route your turnout times if you put seconds in. So that can help you out greatly by putting that data in. And typically you're going to have that. So, okay, if we're caught up, what we're going to do here, I'm going to shift gears. I'm going to throw in, we're going to have a little discussion about some mutual aid things. We get some common questions that we get asked on mutual aid. And there's just a handful of them that I want to make a mention of. So what the NIFRs, if you look in that handout, you're going to find that coding questions book. All the information I'm giving you right now is in that particular document. When is aid not given? There's got to be 2 conditions met that it is mutual aid. And that is if the aid involves another fire department. So your fire department responds into another jurisdiction and both departments are at the incident. That's a key thing, is that both of them are at the incident. The NIFRS coding questions manual will tell you that it's not mutual aid if you're responding and you get canceled before you arrive, if you receive help from a non-fire department EMS agency, if the incident is in another jurisdiction and they do not respond, so there's only one agency there and it's your agency, that is not mutual aid. The other common one we have is, what do we do when we do a move up or cover assignment And here's their example: is there's only one report for your FDID number, and that is when you went there to cover their station. Any calls that you make while you're covering their station, their district, should be coded under that other fire department's FDID number. So as a cover assignment, you're dispatched to move up or cover that. It's one incident report. FDA is going to cover the FDB station. It's one incident report. That's incident number 571 is the incident type, and that's how you'll code that. While you're at the other fire department, if you make calls, what the U.S. Fire Administration is telling us, they want you to report those incidents under that fire department's FDID number. They consider you to be a resource of that fire department. And that is exactly what we're talking about on this slide. So we were at the fire department B in this case, and we're making calls for them. You're a resource of them. Submit your reports under their FDID number. So the other common one is, how should we code if we received help from a non-fire department EMS? That is technically no aid given because you did not receive aid from a fire department based EMS system. So if it's a non-FD based EMS, it's not a fire department, that's considered no aid is received. And your incident type is probably going to be a 311, 311, or 321 for that case. So let's get to the other question that one of our attendees had before, and I'm going to close that and go back into an incident report. Let's talk about this canceled en route. What we have, we're going to go into, I'll go to this particular call, go to basic info 1, and I'm going to code it as canceled en route. Now it's particularly of importance to folks that to note, let's say you got canceled before you actually went en route, or in the case that your department is not able to make that particular response because you don't have enough staffing, whatever. Now we know that happens. We get questions about that. What do we code that at? There's a couple ways you can do that. Second example I gave you. First, you can go in and code it as a 611 dispatched and canceled en route. The U.S. Fire Administration really isn't liking those kind of reports. However, you can go in and submit it as such. And one of the things that I'll mention here is in the apparatus, and this looks like we all responded here. If you go in and you can put in a time and select fill times, even though they're all exact here, it would be my alarm time. This incident report will validate because there's not one of these earlier than another. These can all be the same. So that's one way that you can consider that, as long as they're not out of sequence as in earlier than a previous one. That will work for you. Just have to remember, you have to put one person on one vehicle to get this thing to validate through the NIFRS validation standards. Another way that we can recommend as a practice that you can do if you need to document the fact that your agency could not respond is to create a activity code on your daily log. So in this particular case, what I'm going to do is add to my log. Let's say it was at 8:30 today. I've created an activity code, NRM, no response made. Putting in information in and just very, very simple entry. And there that is. Now, since I have that based on an activity code, what I can do is go to my reports module, and I'm going to give you a specific report that you can use. It's the 954 report. And we use this one because you can select a single activity code on it. And we're going to set this up for the whole year here so far. And it should have a couple entries on this. So this will tell me that on these particular dates and times, I had this particular activity code, no response made, 2 instances of that on, and you can see this top one here, I had some notes in that we did not have enough staffing, we did not respond, and we noted mutual aid. a couple of different ways to handle that for you. The first way is to code it as a dispatched and canceled en route using an incident type code of 611. Is something that the U.S. Fire Administration really doesn't want. They only want a incident report if apparatus responds to the call. And that hopefully that answers that other question we had out there. If you're dispatched and canceled before you go en route, you could use that same example, coded as a 611 dispatched and canceled en route. I showed you how you can do your times, make them all exactly the same, and the incident will validate for you. So that is a basic example, and that's all the material we had set up to cover today. I'm going to ask Mac and Michael if we have any other outstanding questions out there, and don't hesitate to give us an email, and I'll get you that customer list within your county, surrounding counties. And Mac put his email address out there. We can answer specific questions if you have that. And do we have any questions we need to?
We had one, Mark, that I just wanted to hit real quick. I started to type it, but in case it goes out, so it go out to everyone. Somebody had a question about they've been using a numbering system for the last 5 years that allows them to use an alpha character. NIFRs will accept any value in the incident number field. However, the United States Fire Administration recommends that your incident numbers be exclusively numeric, and that is why our system only allows numeric values in your incident numbering.
Okay, perfect. We do get that question once in a while too. Thank you, Michael. I do see a question by Cassandra Ray about if you get canceled en route. So if you get canceled, and let's just jump in and take a look at that real quick. So in this particular case, it doesn't matter if it's one vehicle or all the vehicles, and I don't have any apparatus in that call, so that's a bad example. Let's go back to this one. I will unlock it, and we'll go here to basic 4. So if you're responding, you've left the station and you're en route to the call, and you get canceled. This field down here, cancel date and time, the font is black, it's not required. If I select this apparatus was canceled, which means it did not arrive on scene, you can see when I select that, now my cancel date and time becomes required, and arrival date and time does not. So I would cancel that and put my data down here. And just like that. So that hopefully that answers that particular question. Okay, Mac or Mike, anything else that we have out there we need to get to? Okay, I see one from Brian on the person involved. It's on the grid, advanced search. Does your response still apply? I'm really not following you, Brian.
I think the person involved, you would have to go look at that. I think what he's asking is when you click to include people involved, that's more of not your firefighters or anything. That's the people that own, operate, rent, whatever the structure or the property you're going to look at. Now you'll have to do a advanced search, to pull those people up. But if you don't put that in there, then there's nowhere to put who owns the property, who is renting the property, or whoever, other than in your narrative, and you cannot search narratives. You can find narratives, but you can't search data out of the narrative. So that would be something.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So I went to the people page and I've added a person. Yeah. This is what I'm talking about, Brian. When you put data in here, this becomes searchable on the names, first name, last name. Hopefully that answers your question. Okay. Perfect. You just responded back to us.
Yeah, we had another one that was talking about, let me scroll back up. I've had too many. Oh gosh, where'd it go? Well, Cassandra also asked about the PCRs being sent. Does this mean that we cannot review PCR reports prior to them being uploaded your PCR reports, once they authorize them within the instant module, they are sent. If most of your reviews and stuff would come basically out of your infers review, but now you can do QA reports after, and like for a percentage or something is what they're usually doing that. But as far as reviewing before, that would be a policy you would have to do in your department to not authorize them until they've been reviewed, because once that PCR is authorized, it is automatically sent to your state.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Mac. I want to respond to a question by Brian, and he's up in North Dakota, and he's asking, how did I get to that export? You can't seem to find it. So what happens in North Dakota specifically, Brian, this also is for the state of Pennsylvania and the state of Wyoming. Those are statewide contracts in your state fire marshal's office. In those particular states, they pull the data for you. You never have to make an export if you're in Pennsylvania, North Dakota, or Wyoming. So that's why you can't find that out there, Brian. So hopefully we answered that for you. There may be one or two questions out there we can't get to, and we are a little bit over time, but that's fine. If you have any questions, please send me an email or a Mac an email at mark.wolf@emergencyreporting.com for Mac. Mac, M-A-C, @emergencyreporting.com, and we'll be happy to help you out. Anything else from Mac or Michael? And hearing nothing, we're going to go ahead and put this one in the record book.
I'm good.
Okay, thanks, Mac. I'm assuming Michael's good?
Yep, I'm good.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for coming in and helping us out, Michael. We really appreciate it. We're going to go ahead and put this one in the record book then. Thanks for attending with us. And again, if you have any questions, shoot us an email. We'll get back with you as quickly as we can. Now, we're both going to be tied up in the next week down at the Dallas RTA, but we'll try to squeeze in a few minutes if you do send us something to help you out. Thanks a lot, folks, and have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.